in Everyday Wisdom, this little book of quotes, my favorite quote in there is this whole idea that if you really want to improve the quality of your relationships, whatever you pay to get in here tonight, just this one little sentence will really dramatically alter your relationships. And I'm not just talking about the person that you live with. I'm talking about people that you meet on the street, people that you work with, people that wait on you in restaurants, whomever they are. When you have the choice, and you always do, to be right or to be kind, just pick kind. It's a whole new paradigm. I no longer have to be right. Whew. Now there is a shift in awareness that will lead you to higher consciousness. Someone says, you really are an asshole. And you say, I appreciate you pointing that out. You know, I really do behave like a jerk a lot. And having someone to point it out to me really probably will help me to transcend that. It's very nice of you. The subtitle of my new book is called Making the Decision to be Free. Making the decision to be free. Now, freedom, the best definition I ever heard of freedom was offered by Florinda Donner in a wonderful book called Being in Dreaming. And Florinda Donner defined it this way. She said, freedom is the absolute lack of concern about yourself. Now that's freedom. When I was walking with Marianne Williamson in Melbourne, Australia, just a few months ago, we toured Australia, speaking down there. And we went for a walk one day. My oldest daughter, was babysitting her little girl, Emma. And we went for a walk for about 2 or 3 hours, just talking about the tour and what we were going to do on the programs and all of that. And she said to me, out of nowhere, she said, come on, Wayne. She said, tell me, do you have any secret desires? Just like... Now, there was a time when someone asked me that question in a park, you know, a woman, I would have come up with sort of a crass remark. But I said, yes, I do have a secret desire. She said, what is it? I said, I would like to disappear and still be here. And I remember reading in some of Castaneda's later works saying that freedom is really a disappearing act. It's like you have to learn how to disappear your ego. And the absolute lack of concern about yourself and how things affect you and how self-absorbed you are and how important you are and their need to be right all the time and all of that. This is all stuff that is part of a paradigm that we have been taught because we believe in this, ego, which stands for edging God out. Our ego is the part of us that is our false self. And I say that without qualification. It is the part of us that would have us believe that we are separate from, that we are more important than, that we are special. And all of the stuff that you see going on out there, judging it is not important. In fact, when you judge another person or judge something else, you don't define it. You define yourself as someone who needs to judge. You can't define me by calling me a jerk or a fool. You only define yourself.
It's like if you could spend an hour a day in meditation. The great French philosopher and scientist Pascal said that all of man's troubles stem from his inability to sit quietly in a room alone. You sit quietly in a room alone and go within and discover that higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it, whether you call it God or soul or spirit or Louise, it doesn't make any difference what you label it. If you go within and discover that and spend time each day inside of yourself, just peacefully being there and asking the questions, how may I serve? And what is my purpose? And what can I do to make this life a better one? And how can I serve people rather than be victimized by them or victimizing anybody else? You find that developing that kind of a quiet, peaceful, serene mind is something that will allow you to process the whole world in a more peaceful way. And when you get to that point where you are aligning yourself spiritually, or you are aligning yourself with the invisible part of your humanity, the part that defies form, that doesn't begin and doesn't end, when you align yourself there, and that becomes your first priority, you start noticing that you don't get victimized as much. That as I am more peaceful and I send out more harmony and more love and more forgiveness and more kindness and more of all the things I've been talking about on this tape, if you send that out more, that's what you get back. If you send out hostility and pain and suffering and anger and wanting to make other people wrong and wanting to prove yourself all the time, if you send out that kind of energy from yourself, that's exactly what you're going to get back. Send out love, you'll get back love.
If you understand this simple premise, that we become what we think about, as it says in the Torah, as it says in the Old Testament, as a man thinketh, so is he. As a man thinketh, so is he. We are the products of our thoughts. If you get that simple little thing that I started out with and that I hammer in every book I've written and every talk I've given, every tapes I've produced, we are the product of our thoughts. And our thoughts are very, very powerful. See, if your thoughts are on what you intend to manifest into your life, you can't do anything but do that. If your thoughts are on what is missing in your life, how much of your time do you spend focused on or thinking about what's missing in your life? The money that you don't have, the unhappiness the lack of happiness in your relationships that you would like to have, your health and the absence of the kind of health that you would like to have, the purity of your body, the fact that you've let it become overweight or you've let it become addicted to substances or nicotine or coffees, or you're not living the purified life. What is missing? If your thoughts are on what is missing, and what you think about is what expands, and there's something, Hawkins speaks about this brilliantly in The Power versus Force. If your thoughts are on what is missing, what you create is an attractor energy to have the universe respond back to you with whatever it is that you think about. This is how it works. It's the law of attraction. It's a very simple thing. Remember in that observation of Patanjali, he said, when you become inspired, dormant forces, faculties, and talents come alive. In other words, there are forces out there, outside of you. There's energy fields outside of you that are capable of joining with you and attracting into your life what you want. Carl Jung called it synchronicity. It's a consciousness in which when you put your thoughts on something, and every one of you have had this experience, the experience of thinking about someone and not being able to get your thought off of that person, and then going to the telephone and picking it up and saying, oh my God, I was just thinking about you. How many have had that kind of an experience in your life? As you look around and you think, well, and what do we attribute that to? We attribute that to what? Coincidence, don't we? We just say, well, that's just a coincidence. It's weird. I don't quite understand it. I'd like to be able to harness it, but it's just weird that it happens. But the word coincidence comes from it's a mathematical term. In geometry, two angles that coincide, that's where the word comes from, coincide. Two angles that coincide are two angles that are said to fit together perfectly. That's what an angle that coincides with another angle is. Coincidental angles fit together perfectly. We have taken a term that means something that fits together perfectly, and we have assigned to it something that accidentally just happens to happen. I'd like to suggest to you that synchronicity, that is the ability to put your thoughts on what it is that you intend to create rather than on what is missing, is a way of attracting what is missing into your life. Now, you can continue to either attract what is missing into your life, or you can attract what you would like to intend into your life. It's just a matter of shifting the emphasis. If your thoughts are on, if you talk to other people about what is missing, if you use terms like, with my luck, this probably won't work out. I was changing planes in Dallas, flying from Fort Lauderdale to San Francisco. The woman sitting next to me, we came in, we had about 10 minutes to make our connection. And she stood up and she said, as we were gathering our belongings and everybody was trying to get off the plane, you've all had that experience, and trying to make the connection, she said, with my luck, I won't make my connection. And I thought to myself, why would she have evolved into a person who would project out into the universe, into the world of unlimited energy? Why would she project the idea that with her luck things won't work out? Where did that come from? Why would we have that kind of an energy concept? Because my response back to her was, well, with my luck, I will make my connection. I intend to make my connection. And she said, you can't make a plane that is pulling out stop from pulling out. I said, I absolutely can. Of course I can do that, and I intend to do that. Now, she's still in Dallas. That was like four weeks ago. Trying to get the hell to, her connection to San Francisco. But when you think about what is missing in your life and you talk to your friends about it and you put your attention and your energy on it in your telephone conversations and you go to sleep thinking about what is missing and you have this kind of an energy system going on for you, you will continue to have what you are thinking about show up in your life. And you'll see more and more and more of missingness continue to show up. You can't think about and put your energy on what is missing unless you want it to keep being that way in your life.
You're never going to get enough. You already are everything. You're everything that you need. Think of it for just a moment. Everything that you need to have total bliss, perfection of your life, you already are. You already have it. You came into this world with nothing. That's how you're going out. And the time that you have here, what you have is your uniqueness, your specialness, and you don't need anything else. Now think on this. If you don't know how to appreciate what you have and where you are in your life, you don't need anything else. Because if you do get something else, you won't know how to appreciate that either. You'll just want more. Or you'll want it to be different. Or you'll want it to be the way it used to be. Or you'll want someone else to be the way you think they should be. Successful people or no-limit people or self-actualizing people or inner-directed people, whatever labels that have been put on them by great thinkers and philosophers and therapists and people that have looked at human beings, these kinds of people are people who always have enough. There are some people, if you invite them over and you say, I'd like you to come over tonight, and I'd like you to stay over if you can, instead of having to drive back. And they'll say, well, can you stay? And I say, well, I don't know if I can stay or not. Well, you could sleep on the cot. Oh, no, I could never sleep on the cot. I can't sleep on cots. I got a sciatica. Don't you know that I have back pain and cots? No, that's out of the question. I couldn't sleep on a cot. And what about breakfast? Well, we don't have any food, but we have some old grapefruit that are in the refrigerator. They have a few spots on them. Oh, no, I could never eat grapefruit. And spots? No, thanks. I can't eat grapefruit spots. I just couldn't do that. And these are people who never have enough. They are not able to be flexible and to change. And there are other people, if you say, would you like to sleep over? We got a place in the sewer. Hey, that'd be great. I can handle that. No problem. I slept there before. It's all right. And all we have is grapefruit. Oh, I love grapefruit. Well, there's got spots on them. Oh, I really like grapefruit spots. Those are terrific. I'll go for those. There are some people who can handle anything, not because their circumstances are different. You see, your circumstances have very little to do with your fulfillment in life. Very little. It's how you're approaching your circumstances. It's your attitude towards your circumstances that make all the difference in the world. And taking what you are and accepting it. Daughter helped me with being bald a long time ago. She said, "Dad, you're not really bald. Don't think of yourself that way." She said, "You're just about this much taller than your hair. That's all." Just sort of a nice way to look at it, too. I just sort of outgrew my hair. I sort of transcended my hair, if you will. All right? No limit people are human beings who take what they are and accept it. And don't tell themselves that somehow they're deficient because of anything about themselves. This is a very crucial concept for me and for virtually all of us. It's this idea of taking your life in your own hands and being the kind of person that you choose to be, and understanding that everything that comes your way is an opportunity, is a blessing. And it wasn't until I learned how to celebrate virtually everything that came my way that I was able to transcend it. You see, everything that was given to us by God, whatever that is perfect. No one can deny the mountains are perfect and the rivers are perfect and the birds are perfect and the hippopotamuses are perfect and so on. This is just what was given to us. Everything else that you have on our planet, that we have on our planet, comes about as a result of thinking. Thought makes it so. All right? This microphone comes about as a result of thinking. Somebody imagines it. Somebody then tells somebody else about it, and it creates it. The dress that you're wearing, this shirt that I'm wearing, the shoes that you have, the stage, these cameras. Everything that you see that wasn't given to us was created by man as a result of the way that we think. So what gets inside of us as a cell comes about as a result of the way that we choose to think in our lives. Very important principle to understand. Because once you get a hold of thinking, and that it creates everything that you have in your life, you can change and make it as absolutely perfect as you want it to be, because thought makes it so. Find joy in every moment that you have in your life, instead of always looking for it. It means that while you are driving along the countryside, and seeing, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm on my way to this point," that you can open your eyes and see it with new eyes. See the rolling mountains, see the grass, see the deer, see the sky. You can just stop wherever you are in this second, wherever you are, and just look around you, and you can begin to appreciate just your surroundings and your environment. Then you can begin to appreciate the people that are in your life, and even the ones that are negative and you're having the most difficulty with. You can practice a new way of being with them, which is sending them love, sending them flowers, send them books, send them a tape, send them something, and just see what kind of reaction that you get. Super emotional health is just an attitude. An attitude is everything.
June the 26th of last year, I made an announcement to my kids and to my family that I wasn't going to write any more books. I've written 40 books. Many of them have been very, very successful. All of them have been very successful. Children's books, books that were textbooks before I was writing books for the public back in the 1970s. And I said, I've just done enough of that. And the idea of having to face 500 empty pages and fill them from in here, because unlike many authors, people that call themselves authors, who have other people work for them and write for them and so on, I write everything I have ever published has been written by me by hand. So it's a great labor. It's a labor of love, but it's also a labor of a lot of pressure, to produce and so on. And that was on June the 26th, and I just felt
some relief from that. And now I don't have to write another book. Isn't that great? I'm free. I can do some other things. I can travel, but I've traveled the world anyway. That was June 26th, 2012. June 27th, honestly, this is a true story. I woke up and I was reading a book, and the book was called To Know We Are Loved. It's part of a trilogy written by a man named Rashad Field. And I came across a passage in his book while I'm reading in the morning, because I'm always reading. And this is what it said. It said, if we stop for a moment, it is possible to perceive a pattern in our lives. The motivators that have influenced us become more obvious. We are able to see life unfolding from both ends at once, coming into the present moment. But until we get to a certain point of realization, this is not possible, because everything is still seen as a series of apparent causes and effects. Now, that may not mean a lot to you, but that jumped out at me, and it became a guiding principle for me. So I want to say it to you again. If you stop for a moment, it's possible to perceive a pattern in our lives. The motivators that have influenced us become more obvious. We're able to see life unfolding, and this is really underlined here, from both ends at once, coming into the present. But until we have got to a certain point of realization, this is not possible, because everything is still seen as a series of causes and effects. So that, and then he began to talk more in there about time. And that time is, he talked about two kinds of time. There's one time that is called cause and effect time. So that you look at your life, and most of the things that you think caused you to be where you are and be in the places that you are a result of all of the things that have happened to you in the past up until this moment. But he is talking about both ends. That is, not only are things that are occurred in the past affecting you today, but so are things from the future, what we call the future, that you're pulling from the future. So I like to put it this way. It's like think of your wisdom teeth. You know, the moment that you are conceived, you know, when that tiny little drop of human protoplasm, and in that tiny little drop, and at the moment of your birth, 9 months later, your wisdom teeth are there. Now, they're not going to be the result of something that's going to happen back here. They're already here. They just haven't manifested yet. So you will pull your wisdom teeth out of the future. Literally, 20 years from now, those things will show up, and you'll be pulling things out of the future. So he said this is like cause and effect time, and things are not only taking place in your life that happened in the past, but you're pulling things out of the future. And then he talked about another kind of time that he called eternal time. And eternal time isn't represented by a horizontal line of cause and effect, but by a vertical line that goes from you to God, or to your source of being. And this eternal time is something that is, I have a quote. I wrote a few things out to say tonight. He said, Thomas Traherne, a famous 17th century, not so famous, 17th century poet. He wasn't even discovered until the 19th century. He said, this moment, the moment that you're in right now, exists in infinite space, but there is a space also wherein all moments are infinitely exhibited, and the everlasting duration of infinite space is another region and a room of joys. A room of joys. So that there's something called eternal time. And eternal time is when everything in your life is taken care of for you. And I started writing about this. I started looking at my own life as a tapestry, and that there have been forces at work in my life that were preparing me for this moment, right here, right now, talking to you. And while you're going through them, you're not aware of them. It's only when you get to a place where you can step back and look at these, all of these events, that you begin to realize that I've been in some kind of training for everything that I've done, and I think that I'm the one who's making these choices all along.
At any given moment in your life, you are choosing between two pictures or evaluations of yourself. Your choices include the one offered by your soul or the higher self, which I think of as the voice of God, and the one offered by the ego, or your false idea of yourself. You decide how you view yourself and how you view others as well. Essentially, you accept either ego's picture of yourself and others, or that of your higher spiritual self. In every moment of your life, you have the option to choose peace for yourself. The ego wants you in a constant state of agitation to keep you from embracing your higher self. It convinces you that if you are not always on edge, you can't grow. But you must keep in mind that experiencing this inner turmoil is a choice that you have made by allowing your false self to dominate your life. When you make the choice for peace, you are literally allowing God into your life. Learning how to specifically allow the higher part of yourself, rather than your lower identities, to be in control of your life. We all long for the peacefulness of being without turmoil and angst. There is a feeling of an inner glow when we know that we are on course, on our sacred path. So why do we so frequently choose the opposite emotions and thoughts and inner beliefs which agitate our minds and cloud our perceptions and distort our relationships? You need to carefully examine your choices that block your experience of peace, of God. Just knowing that peace is always an alternative is a significant awakening. These tools will help to tame the ego when it demands that you pursue separateness or specialness. Replacing the turmoil that you so often choose is then a simple matter of allowing your higher self to take over in any situation where you are about to allow turmoil to enter. Your ego will push you in the direction of the fight, away from peace. You must be ready to see it as it is about to happen and invite your higher self to send your ego a not wanted right now message. I'm fond of this A Course in Miracles quotation concerning ego replacement. You will not find peace except the peace of God. Accept this fact and save yourself the agony of yet more bitter disappointment, bleak despair and doubt. Seek you no further. There is nothing else for you to find except the peace of God. When you have an absence of peace at any time in your life, know that your ego, the false idea of yourself, is what's really responsible. Keeping in mind that every thought has a physical counterpart, you can see that an ego-produced constant state of tension that comes with proving yourself, hurrying, chattering, worrying, chasing, acquiring, and competing also involves tension in the body. High blood pressure, ulcers, skin disorders, headaches, back pain, and even more serious ailments such as cancer, strokes, and liver disorders are the payoffs for the dominance of the ego. These disorders manifest because you allow ego to create turmoil to avoid the peace that is found within. This awareness of the ego's program should help as you move toward restraining ego and getting to know your higher self. The ego, that false idea that we all have of ourselves, wants to maintain this persistent state of inner confrontation for some very solid reasons. When you understand your ego, you are much more apt to work at restraining it. When you know why your ego behaves as it does, you will then be able to make the adjustments necessary for your higher self to have a greater influence in your life. Here are some of the most obvious reasons why your ego keeps you in this state of turmoil rather than peace. Most important, your ego has been with you since childhood. It has been nurtured by almost everyone you've ever known. Generations of those nurturers have also been dominated by their egos. Your ego wants to survive. If it can keep you in a state of inner turmoil, it will block you from knowing your spiritual self. From the ego's perspective, God is a huge threat, so it will do all that it can to keep you from experiencing that inner peacefulness where God's voice is so beautifully clear. Your ego does not want you to change. The idea of yourself as self-important and special nourishes ego, keeping it healthy and operating at full strength. Even though ego itself is an illusion, just a false idea that you carry around with you, it behaves as if it really had a life of its own.
Your ego will make every effort to convince you that you do not need to change. In fact, if you're asking yourself why you shouldn't feel special, you are listening to it right now. These are the kinds of thoughts that have kept you from making the changes leading to inner peace. The ego thrives on fear. When you are afraid, you are at the mercy of the ego. Fear will drive you to behave in ways that undermine your sacred self. Your higher self tells you that there is nothing to fear, that love is the answer to everything, and that God is what love is all about. Your loving presence assures you that you do not need to feel guilty or fearful, and that if you do, it will subside when you experience inner peace. When you experience love within, you have no guilt and no fear. You know that everything you are experiencing is in order, including your woes, which are your greatest teachers, and the death of your body, which is ordained for all the world of the manifest. You know that death is a reward, not a punishment. Therefore, you have nothing to fear unless you listen to your ego encouraging fear and dismissing God. Your ego wants you to be on the move, looking for more things to consume and more possessions to own. The more you are on the move in your life, the less time you will have for knowing your spiritual base. Ego cheers you on to stay busy, to keep moving, and to avoid the inner quest where your ego faces restraint. Your ego wants you to face outward. It wants you to continue facing the wrong way so that you cannot experience the presence of God in your life. By facing away rather than inward, you ensure the strong presence of your ego forever. The consequences are that you will continually feel the pressure to compare yourself with others, the need to defeat others in order to feel powerful or even worthwhile, to have more and better toys, to accumulate more trophies. All of this facing outward is the work of the ego. When you refuse to listen, it shouts that you must be upset when others get ahead of you, that you are worthless when you lose, that being number one is more important than anything, that to settle for less is to admit to being a loser. All of these beliefs are deeply ingrained within you. It is very difficult for you to even imagine not having them because the work of your ego and the egos of so many others have been working overtime, convincing you that this is the only way to be. Facing outward brings about a sense of inner conflict and agitation that keeps you pursuing the gold stars that the ego offers. These are a few of the more obvious payoffs your ego uses to keep you in a confrontational rather than a peaceful mood. Keep in mind that you can restrain this ego simply by the power of your own will. All it takes is a determination to live by the dictates of your higher self and a willingness to act on that determination rather than succumb to the easier path of the ego.
So what are your thoughts on the law of attraction? When I do it, I feel like I'm somewhat of the doer.
On the law of attraction?
And the terms, we're not the doer of anything. We're not the doer, but in the law of attraction, when I practice that, it feels like I am a doer because I'm trying to attract something.
Right. Our minds are very good at convincing us that we are the doer. Because this ego is the only thing that we've ever lived with from the time that we showed up here after we left those first 9 months. So you're never going to get yourself convinced that you're not the doer, because the only thing that you have to convince yourself that you don't have an ego is your ego. That's what you have to work with. That's all you have to work with. So you have to become like the observer to the ego and look at it from the perspective of I know what I'm being told, that I'm really doing this, but there's really a part of me that knows that all of this is being done by something that is much greater, much bigger, much more divine, much more powerful than I am. This puny little ego of mine is something that I just have to play with all the time and stop convincing myself. So as you do this law of attraction begins to work, I think, at what I call a spiritual level. And at the spiritual level, as your thoughts move up from it's me that's doing this to it's just happening to it's God who's doing all of this, it's the Tao at work. As I move up in these thoughts, I just start noticing. I can't explain it. I don't know why. I don't know how it all works. But I begin to see that the universe or God or soul begins to send me the right people, the right messages. Things start fitting in where they didn't fit in before. The financing begins to show up. And you just start noticing that. And instead of judging it or trying to figure it out with your mind and with your ego, with the doer, you just stay in a state of gratitude for all of it. Saying, thank you. Thank you. Again, one more time, thank you. I do it every time I see a coin on the ground. I think of coins as just symbols of abundance. And every time I pick one up, and all my kids say the same thing, thank you, God, for this symbol of abundance that continues to flow into my life. You know.
Thanks.
Do you have any comments on that? Or?
Well, for me, the law of attraction is, for me, I'm attracted to everything and everyone. And I would question any thought I would have that would separate me from you. And not waiting for that special someone, that special something, you know, it's just to love what is right here, right now. And in that, your eyes are so open, you can see all of the options because you're not at war. You know, peace it's underrated. There's nothing more exciting than peace. And so I look forward to meeting someone that I'm not attracted to, and it hasn't happened for a while. Yeah.
There's a wonderful line in the Tao that says, a bad man is a good man's job, and a good man is a bad man's teacher. So that everyone out there that we evaluate to be bad, that's just our job. So all of these people that are out there, that newspapers and the president and all of those cronies would have us believe are evil, bad people, that's just our job. According to Lao Tzu, that's your job. Our job is to bring them around, to bring them into a place of love. And for all the bad, what we call those bad, we are just the teachers. We are their teachers.
As a human race, I have found things that we have in common, so I know we can agree. And that is, we all agree, like, it's a table. It's a microphone. Right. It's a glass. It's water. You know, I call them first-generation thoughts. And when we're in love with what is reality, first-generation thinking, then the mind is free to be its infinite self, and there's nothing it can't do. It can even end war on this planet, and that's very exciting. You know, if we didn't believe what we thought, we could clean up the planet. We could get rid of bombs. They would no longer be necessary. But what I do is just invite people to begin the way that I do and still do, you know, peace in the head, peace at home. Yeah, to begin there.
Just looking at it with new eyes. I'd always loved Rumi, one of my favorites of teachers, philosophers, poets. And he said, talking about just looking at the world in a different way, he said every tree and branch was dancing, those which average eyes would see as fixed and still. You get just a new vision. And that new vision, I think, is one that if enough of us have it, well, you even said even if just one of us has it, then that's enough to transform the whole world.
That this intelligence is something that we can all access and create, not just what we do in our physical world every day, which is where it all comes from, but we can begin to create miracles for ourselves in our lives. Aldous Huxley, in the Perennial Philosophy, he talked about 3 things that all ages of man and all civilizations since the beginning of time all have had in common about what I'm talking about here this morning. All ages, all civilizations, from the ancient cavemen and their totems to the African traditions, to the New Guinea traditions, to the European and the Eastern traditions, and the Indian and the Japanese tradition. And these are people and places that have never intersected with each other in a physical way. All of them have had what Huxley called 3 things they have in common. If you look at the philosophers, the people who have spoken for their people at that time, they've all believed that there is an invisible intelligence beyond the world of the changing. All ages of man, somehow, their most enlightened beings know this. There is an invisible world beyond the world of the changing. Number 2, all ages, all civilizations who've never intersected with each other have all believed that that invisible intelligence is a part of every single human being. All ages. That it isn't something that is some people get and some people don't. It excludes no one. And 3, all ages of man have known and believed that the purpose of life is to discover God, or to discover whatever it is that you want to call that invisible intelligence that suffuses all form in the universe and allows not only you to take notes and to ice skate after 34 years of being away from them, but it allows the flowers to grow, and it allows the planets to align, and it allows the whole thing to exist. So if you want to call it God or soul or spirit or consciousness or Ralph, it doesn't really make any difference what name you put on it. It is not what you call it. It is in every one of us. We all have it. We couldn't be here without it. See, you will discover, as I discovered when my grandmother died, that when they weighed her just before her death at the age of 94 at Henry Ford Hospital, that she weighed 133 pounds. And then after she died, and there was this package, this container left that they were preparing to embalm. It wasn't my grandmother. It was now just a package. That it weighed 133 pounds as they weighed it for the death certificate. Powerful metaphor there for me in that moment was that whatever it is that constitutes your very life, it doesn't weigh anything. When life leaves the package that you showed up in, the package weighs the same. So your life is something other than the package. And when you get that, you understand that who you are is really this soul with a body, rather than this body with a soul. Or as I said, and you'll see it when you believe it, you're a human being. You're not a human being having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. But the quality of that human experience is dependent upon how able and willing you are to make contact with that invisible intelligence that suffuses you and all form in the universe, that is independent and outside of this physical form that you showed up in. This physical form that you showed up in was all handled for you in a split second. All handled in this infinitesimally tiny speck. In this little speck, when two little drops of human protoplasm collided, everything you needed for your form was handled for you. And you can't even begin to comprehend it. A heart starts beating inside a mother's womb 6 or 7 weeks after conception. And it's a complete and total mystery to everyone in the scientific world and the medical world, and the only people that even have a grasp on it are the poets. Whatever that something is, that invisibleness that allows you to be, we'll call it awareness. Pure awareness.
Honoring your worthiness to receive. In order to become a manifester, literally taking part in the process of co-creating your life and attracting to yourself the objects of your heart's desire, you must know that you are worthy of receiving. This will mean examining the attitudes that you knowingly and unknowingly hold about your life. Your thoughts, which are the architects of the foundation of your material world, are what you want to examine. You can remind yourself all day long that the same power that brought anything into the physical world also brought you. But if you do not feel worthy, you will disrupt the natural flow of energy into your life and create a blockage that makes manifestation impossible. The fifth principle reminds you that you are worthy of abundance. If your thoughts are based on an image of unworthiness for any reason at all, you will manifest what those thoughts impart to the universal mind. The energy described in the fourth principle will align with what it is that you radiate. As a man thinks, so is he, are not just empty words. Thinking that abundance is incompatible with spirituality is a myth that influences many of us and is the largest impediment there is to feeling worthy. Take a look around your world and notice the abundance and endlessness of our universe. It goes on and on, beyond our ability to imagine its vastness. This abundance flows from the same energy that comprises our fundamental essence. It is you. You are it. Material form is how spirit makes itself known to us while we are in form ourselves. Spirit manifests in trees and oceans and fish, birds, minerals, vegetables, flowers, and you. When we adopt an attitude of spirit being incompatible with matter, we are denying the spirit that is in matter as its originating energy. We also deny the validity of ourselves as spiritual beings. When we shift to seeing that together they comprise one harmonious whole, we remove the stigma of selfishness. Just as each one of us is one harmonious whole comprised of spirit and matter, so too is the entire universe. The process of life taking form is a mystery. That mystery is governed by a creative energy that is knowable when we genuinely feel worthy of receiving its blessings in form. Abundance is the way of the creative force in the universe. You are entitled to have abundance in your life and to radiate prosperity to all that you encounter in your world. Nothing is gained by making yourself small and insignificant other than to manifest smallness and insignificance into your life.
This creative source reacts to your belief in shortages with a fulfillment of your belief. So if you believe and know and are certain that you can't attract abundance into your life, but I want to tell you tonight, you tuned in to somebody who knows about abundance. I have always been able to create abundance in my life. When I was a little kid, all the other kids in the places that I lived and so on, and even when we got back at home with my mom, pop bottles. You remember soda pop bottles? You could collect them, little knee-high bottles and Pepsi-Cola bottles and Coca-Cola bottles, and 2 cents if you took them back. I was a master at collecting pop bottles. I could manifest a pop bottle just like that. It was just... We used to have furnaces that had coal in them, and I would go along and I would empty people's ashes that they would set out. I'd just take it out to the alleys. I would go to the grocery store, and because my imagination was always working on abundance, I would carry groceries out for little old ladies. You know what I'm doing today? Right now? Collecting pop bottles and taking out ashes and taking out groceries for little old ladies. Just a bigger stage. See, if I came to this source and said, I don't have enough, this source doesn't know how to react to I don't have enough. This source is an endless supply. It's like the ocean. You can take a 10 million gallon tank to the ocean of abundance, and you can take it out every hour, or you can take a thimble once a year. And the ocean doesn't care. It makes no difference to the ocean because everything returns to this source. Every time I walk, wherever I go, in fact, it happened to me this morning. I found a dime. A dime? That's like major. A dime. That's 10 pennies. That's 5 bottles. And whenever I bend over, and I notice that it gets a little further away, I bend over and I pick up this coin, and I always say, thank you, God, for this symbol of abundance that always flows into my life. Never once have I ever said, how come only a dime? I need $1,000. Why are you only giving me a dime? The face of abundance is like you have to come to this source not with what is missing, because it doesn't know. There's nothing missing. This source, which is the source of all, doesn't know about what's missing. When you say, please give me what is missing, it'll just reaffirm your belief in things being missing. You have to come to this source by being abundant, by being in a state of gratitude, by being thankful for all that you are, and seeing yourself as attracting more and more of that, and being willing to give it away.
I was on the airplane coming here, and I had a baby carriage that I was giving to my brother, whose wife is going to have a baby. And I have little babies. I'm 46 years old, and I have an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, in addition to an 11-year-old and a 19-year-old. So I had this baby carriage that I was bringing up because my sister-in-law was going to deliver her baby at any time. And the stewardess came up to me and said, "That baby carriage up there, is that for your granddaughter?" And I thought to myself, how could she possibly think that someone as young as I am could be a grandfather? Even though it's very possible at 46 to be a grandfather. I thought to myself, I'm 14 years old. It's not possible for her to think that I could be a grandfather. How could a 14-year-old be a grandfather? That's my perception of myself. I see myself as a little boy. I act like a little boy. And I run every day, and I play tennis at a level that I couldn't play it at when I was a younger boy. I can do virtually anything that I want to, and intend to do that my entire life. Because it isn't your form that counts. It isn't the age of your body that counts. It's whether you transcend your form. All right? That's what transformation comes from. Transform. Go beyond your form. All right? You're not your body. You are your conscious awareness. You are your thoughts. You are your feelings. You are those things that are intangible that you can't get a hold of, because we've already occupied many different bodies already while we're here on this planet. I mean, I was in an 8-pound body, and I was in a body that was only 2.5 feet tall, and I was in a body that didn't have any hair on it, and then it had a whole bunch of hair on it. Then it all fell out again later on. I mean, I've been in lots of different bodies, all right? And nothing about me, not one physical cell that was in my 10-year-old body is in the body that I carry now at 46. Not one cell. All right? They've all been changed. And yet, I can remember everything about what I did when I was 10 years old. So I am not that body, which is now gone. I am the thoughts behind it. I am not a body with a soul. I'm a soul with a body. All right? And when you understand that, your aging, you're getting older, is not the condition of your body, because you're not your body. You are thought. Thought is everything. And attitude is everything. So that getting older, having your form get older, is just one thing. But if you're transformed, if you've gone beyond your form, then you don't have to get older. It's just a way of looking at your life. And yes, your body will slow down, and yes, it won't be able to do the things that it could do at one time. But most of that is controlled by our thinking, by our attitudes. And I have a child inside of me. And I choose to think of myself, regardless of what anybody else thinks. Even if a stewardess thinks that little baby carriage could be for a granddaughter, if that's what she thinks, that's just what she thinks. But if I don't think that way, and I don't think of myself as old or as getting worse or anything like that, if I see myself as the way that I think, the irony of all of this is that your body will respond in ways that are very healthful and even youthful. But if you focus just on your body, then you will notice everything about it that is changing and assess it in a way that says, I am deteriorating. But if what I am is not my body, but my thoughts, then it can never deteriorate. And you can't kill thoughts. You can't kill feelings. You can only kill form, and form dies, all right? But if you are not that form, then you know that your conscious awareness can never die. You can't change that. It just changes from one form to another form to another form. And that's the way I tend to look at it. And so I don't see any effects of my form getting older. I see every once in a while a new little wrinkle. I'll see changes in that have taken place in my body. But I am not that. That is not what I am. And I see a phenomenal miracle in this whole business called life. And that doesn't have to change just because your form is growing older. It just doesn't have to. I don't, anyway, assess my value and worth as a human being based on my form, on my body. And then my body is able to stay in phenomenal shape because of the way that I think. I eat a third of what I used to eat, all right, and in total bulk in a given day. I sleep probably a third less than I used to sleep. I don't put sugar into my body except just natural from fruits and things. I don't use salt on my foods at all. These are all things that I did regularly in my life. I exercise and walk almost everywhere that I go instead of getting in a car and being driven someplace. I run 8, 10, 12 miles every single day. None of these things were ever deliberate choices that I decided I better make because my body's getting older and I have to take better care of it. They came about, they followed me as a result of being in a higher state of pure thought. a higher state of self-acceptance, of seeing myself as an important, significant human being, and living that way, and seeing other people that way, and seeing the world that way, in this more purified kind of way, more loving kind of way, all the other stuff is followed after me. It's alarming that when you unclog yourself, that your body goes right with it. And your body doesn't have to wear out nearly at the level that I once thought it had to. And I think if you keep a real strong grip on the way that you think and process your world, you will see your body getting healthier, more capable than you ever thought it would be. Even the total wearing out of your body, I think, is an attitude.